Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Night Owl, a show that we do twice a week where we discuss all the latest in pop culture news, TV and movie reviews, gaming news, and just everything that's happening in the world. And I'm your host, Price of Reason, and as usual, I have with me my co host, Professor R2. How's it going, Professor?
It's going all right. Yeah, kind of nice to be out of the busy season that I usually have to deal with as working in higher education and getting ready to start in on the busyness of packing all the packages and stuff, wrapping all the packages and things for family for Christmas. Always sort of fun, and on the other side not particularly enjoyable. It's a lot of work. So yeah,
For sure.
it's that Christmas season. Things get a little hectic, but at the same time, at least for me, work is wound down a bit. So yeah, it's doing well.
I
Doing
think
well.
for most people now it's starting to wind down. I mean, once you get towards the holidays, people, have their eyes and their attention in other places. And I guess, um, here we are with,
Yeah,
it's there. But you know what? There have been some interesting news, even in spite of
yeah,
it being kind of a
yeah.
quiet time. There have been some interesting news going on, and we can discuss them today. So, for
Absolutely.
starters, I don't know if you noticed, I really feel that, we've said this before that since Trump got elected, I feel like Disney have felt the heat. But in the past few days, there have been certain things that happened that make me feel like they're really feeling the heat.
Yeah. There's been a number of things that have been coming out about Disney, especially as in the thumbnail they're talking about the settlement that ABC had to make with Disney
Yeah, I
or
mean,
with Trump. Sorry.
the thing is, let me see if I can find this. So you had, you had this thing here. Let me try to share it. So I don't know if you see it now. You see
Yep.
this?
Now you got to switch to presentation up there at the top. Yep.
I doesn't seem to give us the presentation.
Ah,
Uh,
what's going on?
okay. Oh wait,
There we
here we
go.
go.
There we
Oh
go.
yeah,
All
we
right.
did it. We did it.
There we
Okay.
go.
So in any case, what's going on here is that George Stephanopoulos, apocalyptic, apoplectic, humiliated over ABC News $60 million
Yeah.
defamation suit settlement with Trump. Now the thing is that I feel like in the past over something like this, Disney would fight Trump and not actually agree to this kind of settlement. But if you remember, they basically said that he likes grapes
Yes, that he
and
was into some grape flavored things, and
grape. He likes serving grapes to women.
yeah.
That
Well,
was
specifically, I believe it was George Stephanopoulos, who was responsible for saying, I think, 10 times on a broadcast, saying that he was involved with grapes, and that he'd been convicted of being grapey, and that was not the case. It was a civil matter. He was not found guilty of any crime. It was a civil matter, which has a much different evidentiary, thing that goes on. It's not the same type of courtroom. It's not the same type of jury, the same type of findings, the same type of evidence that you would have in a criminal case. And so it's just a preponderance of evidence kind of thing. And yeah, so he was not convicted of being grapey. He was just found liable for the damages that what was her name? It just slipped out of my head. E. Jean Carroll had claimed that he was uh, that had happened in their encounter some 40 years previous. So he was not guilty of committing the crime that George Stephanopoulos repeatedly stated on the air, which is why Trump brought the suit against ABC.
Right. So let me see this for a second if I can do it. I have shared a link here before we go on. Hopefully somebody could see this link. Tried to share it. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work. Basically, Marla Sharondoff is in the chat. She is the sister of Tara Strong, the voice actress. And apparently there's been a person that's sort of stalking them, her and her family, and posting strange videos, some of them of a threatening nature. But with all the noise of social media, it's sometimes difficult, even to alert the right people. She started a little petition just trying to get people aware of this. I tried to actually post it in the chat right now, but I don't know. Can you see it or it didn't work?
Not seeing it.
Let me try
You might
another way to do it.
have to go straight to YouTube or
I'll go straight to
whatever. Yeah.
YouTube. The thing is that I understand it's a complicated issue, but the thing is very important, and we here at Price of Reason Studios,
Yeah.
we like Tara Strong and her family, and if this
Absolutely.
somehow how helps a situation where a person is sort of threatening, well, we're happy to help. I don't
Yeah.
know. This is sort of how am I going to explain it? It's a petition. I'm not, sure exactly what if it'll really fully get everything done, but I think that this support would help
Yeah.
Tara Strong and Marla and her family, and it's nice of them to hang out here at Price of Reason Studios. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this.
I think you
tried.
should just put it in the YouTube chat. You'd have to
I
open up
tried right
YouTube
now.
to do it.
Okay. I think this is
There
good.
you go. There you go.
I don't know if this is good enough, but I really did try, Marla. If there's like a shorter link, it would actually help me more. But in any case, Tara Strong is great. People, in case you know her, she's done so many voices and so many things, and really at the top of her field when it comes to voice acting. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a good way
No,
to describe her, right?
absolutely, yeah. She's absolutely premier level voice actress. I
Here,
love.
I put the petition in now.
There you go. Yeah.
I just posted it, Marla, and I am going to try to do this in Rumble too, and hopefully that'll work as well. As I said, there's some person bothering them. Maybe this is something that could help their family, so I'm all for it. Back to this thing. We were talking about Trump and his
Yeah.
and the settlement. Yeah,
Yeah, the
what were you
lawsuit.
saying about it?
Well, yeah, no, I was just saying that, it's, George Stephanopoulos had sort of repeatedly stated on the air that Donald Trump had been found guilty or that he was guilty of this act, of being grapey. And in fact, that was not the case. He was not found guilty. That would have been a criminal court. There's a different type of evidence that would come there, different type of decision that has to be made by a jury. He was only found liable in in a private court and in this thing to do with Eugene Carroll. It was not a criminal thing. So you cannot say he was found guilty of those actions.
Right,
That's not
right.
the case.
I
It's two
also
different
I
things.
want to say something, and I know this may be controversial, but this is my opinion on it, and I guess it's hard for me not to voice it. I'm not dismissing or discounting uh, certain claims that women may have in certain situations. All I'm saying is that this guy was already the president for years. He was in the public eye, and at the exact moment where it would seem very strategic, this lady popped up with a story of something that she claimed happened, 30 years ago, with no evidence whatsoever. I'm all I'm saying is that it seemed rather convenient, the timing and the whole setup, It's not even a situation like, well, all these years he wasn't in the public eye, but now he suddenly was, or all these years he wasn't running for president, but now he was. It was exactly at that time when it looked like he was going to run again, and that's when suddenly all of this thing surfaced. And I don't know what to tell
There
you.
is also the fact that just before this suit was brought against Donald Trump, New York changed the law to allow her to do it. They
Yeah,
changed it so that she could bring this suit against him, even though uh, the period between when it had happened and today, that she would not have normally been able to do that, but they changed it.
they basically like revised the statute of limitations so she
Yes,
could do
exactly.
it.
They
But
changed the statute of limitations and
But
allowed her to
regardless of
bring
the
it.
statute of limitations, I mean, she didn't come and say that earlier. She didn't say anything, and then suddenly now, it really felt like another one of those Blasey Ford situations.
Yes,
And
yes.
you know, I think I think we're seeing more of these things where somebody runs and somebody comes up with a claim, from 30, 40 years ago of something that there's really, I mean, you have to be able to prove something. It's a very long time after something that allegedly happened to come and speak about it with no evidence. And when there's a person, some cases we see somebody with a lot of money, a public figure, or a public figure was running for office. Uh, these are very strange times to pop up, in my opinion.
Yep. It's it does seem very suspicious, and you're right. I mean, a lot like with Blasey Ford situation, it was well, this thing happened, but I don't necessarily remember exactly where it happened or exactly what year it happened, and there was a whole lot of very odd stuff
Blasey
about
Ford was
the
a weird one. She couldn't
acquisition
remember
period.
anything. She had no information. She just sat there accusing, but not even. She couldn't, like you said, she couldn't remember a time, she couldn't remember a day, she couldn't remember a location, she couldn't remember anything. And if you're going to come and say something that happened 40 years ago and you don't even know what it is and when or what happened, that is a really, really weak foundation for any kind of argument. It's not because I'm trying to be a mean person. It's
No,
just that again, it's so many years later. uh, I mean, these laws sometimes they make it so after so many years you can't say certain things just in general, the statute of limitations, because it's so hard to go back and start investigating and bringing the people and bringing the information. Now I assume that sometimes there's crimes that fall between the cracks because of the statute of limitations, but at the same time, on the flip side, also coming after so many years, I don't know, that E. Jean Carroll lady, don't really know what to say, personally. So I don't know if he's going to appeal those verdicts or he's going to do anything, but I was very surprised that he was even found in that civil case, found liable. And didn't they give him like to pay her like $7 billion or something ridiculous, right?
it was a large sum. I don't remember what it was,
They're
but
like, he has to
yeah,
pay her $500 million. Really, 500 million? There was like no evidence whatsoever. I couldn't see anything. I know that it's hard to bring evidence, but man, did that look like a long shot. That
yeah.
whole case, the fact that like some jury sat there and said like you got to pay her $500 million was insane to me.
A jury verdict in January was 83.3 million in damages.
That is a
But
whole lot of damage.
he has appealed. So,
That is a
uh,
whole lot of damage, and
yeah.
really, I struggle to understand what the basis was for them even convicting him. And I say this, I've said it
Yeah.
before. It's not that I'm saying that I'm like, Trump's number one fan. I always tell you, politicians, I take them all with a grain of salt. But I don't like when justice is sort of twisted in order to, run a candidate out of town. And I also don't like this kind of hypocrisy and the things that we see. That actually does bother me. And I still struggle to understand how they thought that he now needs to pay her $83 million or whatever you just said, What was there? How did they even reach any kind of conclusion?
I
Really?
have I really have no idea. It was a it was a summary judgment that was made. But anyway, in the trial, if I remember correctly, so the state of New York has a very narrow definition of grapes,
Okay,
and it involves actual you know there has to be more than just exterior physical contact, let's say.
I see.
Uh, and so, yeah, it needs to be rated X, basically. And so they initially gave it to the jury, saying, "Hey, this is you got to go on the preponderance of the evidence, and you have to follow this very strict, this very strict definition." And they could not find him guilty of that. So they could not find on the preponderance of the evidence that he had committed that act. And so then they had to reduce it to simply sexual abuse for that, when they moved forward. So, uh, yeah, the judgment that came through was, yeah, for $83.3 million. But that's wild. That's wild for a civil case.
Civil case, which I still don't
Wi-
even know that they really, to say that this is a he said she said is an understatement here, and
Yeah.
it's a he said she said about things decades earlier that there's simply nothing to back up. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that according to this, any person can just come and say something against another person that happened decades ago with really nothing to go on it and potentially walk away with $83 million.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing it correctly. Maybe there's something that I don't understand. That's what it seems like to me. So if I were all those kind of George Stephanopoulos or whatever it is, I would have not really spoken too much about it. It seemed like a very, very political trial. I feel like if you would have tried to, try him in Texas with a jury of his peers, I don't know if that would have happened there. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
was in New York where they've like brainwashed people that he's the mustache man or whatever it is. And I think that they just sat there and you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah, but the whole suit again comes down to this whole defamation suit comes down to George Stephanopoulos claiming on the air, repeatedly stating that Trump
Right,
was found
that he
liable
liked grapes,
for that he liked
that
grapes
Donald Trump
when
liked grapes.
that was not factually true. And
Okay.
so this defamation suit, there were a lot of people who wanted Disney to keep fighting this, saying you can win this, because there's been lots of suits against news organizations, you know, not so many in the recent past, but there have been, in further back, but saying that, well, you're a news organization, you can say what you want, you can make this you can say, but that's the thing, like, yeah, there's a lot of protections there for them as a news organization, but he repeatedly claimed something that was not true, definitionally untrue. And so I think it actually would have been a really hard case for them to fight out and win.
You
To
know
to
what?
say, this really heinous act that he's saying, that is not what was found in court. Even if he was found liable for something, it wasn't that. And
Right.
so it's yeah, that's I think they would have had a really hard time in court.
So I guess maybe they would have had a hard time in court, but there's also this kind of feeling that in the past, I don't know, that they would have settled. Still, I don't know, and I also think that there's a situation here that they understand that he's back in the White House and that he's the kind of person that's looking at who annoyed him and
Mhm.
he's unhappy, and I don't think he's happy with how ABC handled that debate. If you
No,
remember
no,
ABC
he's
with their
not.
debate?
He's not happy with them one bit.
ABC basically tried to rig the debate against him. And yeah, I mean, basically they were sitting there fact checking him. And just so you understand, because I am objective, I've told you before that I thought that actually Kamala did better in that debate, surprisingly, than he did, because she got
Mhm.
under his skin. But I will also say that they fact checked him. What they did there, that they said that, oh, he's lying that with the immigrants ate the cats and the dogs, and actually, first of all, I don't believe he was lying, and he has a kind of outlandish way of speaking, and maybe there's a way that he could explain what he wants to say in a more reserved fashion. I guess that's not really his thing. Perhaps
Yeah.
the way he explained it seemed outrageous, but it's not entirely untrue that, that immigrants from other countries, that there it's acceptable to eat certain animals. They come to a different country that's more Western, and maybe, you know, they bring their own customs. Not that I'm saying that they're sitting around and they're like trying to be evil. It's just like you come from somewhere else, and in your culture that's accepted, and then you come here and it's not accepted, but you don't know it or you don't care. And I think that he was saying something that wasn't, in my opinion, entirely untrue. He just maybe could have said it differently. And they sat there and they checked him, and they, you know, what they did was unacceptable, in my opinion. It was a situation where he was like debating three people.
Yeah,
So
it was
that already
pretty ridiculous.
that already annoyed him. You know, Iger himself. You know, there was all this stuff in Florida that he was causing. I mean, Iger and Disney have been basically, you know, full on hardcore left wing extremism for years now,
Oh yes.
and yeah, I mean, I think that this is a harsh new reality that after all their crap, they went all in on Kamala. They were willing to rig the debate, to do all this stuff, and then it ended up that he won. So there's a feeling that they were in a rush to get this settled. You know what I mean? If he wasn't the president now, I don't know if they'd be in such a rush.
Well, I will say this. I think there's a very big reason why they decided to settle this and ended up giving $16 million to the Trump presidential library. $1 million of that, by the way, coming out of George Stephanopoulos' pocket. That's $16 million that they're going to pay. This avoids going to Discovery. Because if they had to go to Discovery, they're going to get a chance to look at all those emails that got sent between Dana Walden and her bestie, Kamala Harris. They're going to get to look at emails all over, you know, documents from all over Disney's business. And Disney does not want that. They don't want any chance that someone's going to be digging around looking at that stuff. Because like you said, they've been on this leftist,
Right.
identity politics, woke, whatever you want to call it. They've been on this train for a while now, and they've been all in. And I think up to the point of collaboration with the previous administration and the Harris campaign. And I don't think they want that to be exposed. They don't want a chance of that getting out in the public.
So this Matthew Baloney guy, there's a guy, I didn't make it up. His name is Matthew Baloney. And he usually has a bunch of baloney that he sells people.
Oh, my baloney has a first name.
No, this guy is a guy. He used to be in the. You know what annoys me? I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel bad that it annoys me. But basically, this Matthew Baloney guy, he used to be, I think, part of the Hollywood Reporter or some industry trade like that. And then he's like, he kind of, I guess, saw the writing on the wall. So he went and he created this other kind of quote unquote insiders magazine where him and others sort of give you a more like insider's perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like behind a paywall. So he went and he did this, and he's been doing this for a few years, this Puck thing. Personally, I feel like he himself is still a very mainstream media kind of tool, but he's just kind of trying to disguise him as more underground. And I don't fully buy him, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I just happened to run into this stupid article where he was just saying, oh, why did he, he was trying to figure out why he did it. And yeah, I mean, he's saying that, first of all, a lot of people, especially in the industry and a lot of journalists or whatever, really, really upset that they caved. And they said it was like knee bent and ring kissed or whatever. You have a lot of Democrats that are very upset. And then, people are saying that this Deborah O'Connell, the executive who oversees ABC News, followed by Zuckerberg, Tim Cook. They all went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. Now Ted Sarandos of Netflix is heading there. Basically, I think what's happened here, and this is in the bigger picture, is that for all these years, all these people, they thought they'd never see Trump again, as president. And they didn't like him to begin with, and they just went and all in they went once he wasn't there. You know what I mean? As bad as they disliked him when he was there, once it was Biden and Kamala, they just, they had a big party and celebration even more, always looking to trash him again and do more. And then it was all these trials and all these things, and everybody piled up on him. And at the end, he got elected. And not only did he get elected, he has the House and he has the Senate. This is basically a lot of these kind of mainstream media people, these kind of extreme leftists or activists in these corporations, whatever it is. This is their worst nightmare.
Yeah.
You realize that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And of course, you never heard any of these people complaining that people that traveled to the White House or went to go meet Biden at his home and, wherever, that they were going to kiss the ring, whatever, right? No, it's a legitimate business. You have to go and meet with people who are going to be potentially regulating your business, or hey, with Trump, maybe deregulating your business in some way, right? It is absolutely essential that these people go and meet with congressmen, that they meet with the president, they meet with, and they're interested in making sure that they're getting in and talking to this, this next person who's going to be taking office very soon. And they want to make sure that their business interests are going to be safe. So it's so ridiculous to be like, oh, they're going out there to kiss the ring. No, they're going out there because they run multi-million dollar, sometimes multi-billion dollar businesses, and they need to have an idea of what of what Trump is planning when he comes into office and how that might affect their business. So
Right.
it's so silly. It's just so silly.
We have a super chat from
We
the Dead
do.
Man. He said, "A low price in R2. I can't stick around. See you Thursday." Well, first of all, thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And it's a
Thank
shame
you.
you can't stick around more. That would be great, but I understand things happen, and we're gonna miss your comments and your input.
Yep.
But we will see you here whenever you can make it. So
Yeah,
thanks for stopping by.
and we always appreciate the support, Dead Man. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, man. I just noticed that on some platforms, I don't want to say which one, when I write the thumbnail for this title, they're already like adding their own kind of comments.
Oh, you talking about the any? You talking about on YouTube where they put the thing about the U.S. election at the
What
bottom
do
of
they want?
everything?
What do they want? Yeah, I mean, what are they bothering me about? It's like, yeah, the elections are over. It's done. We're not even talking about that. Like, it seems very
You put the
strange.
word Trump in your
So that
headline.
said, it's like a red
Yep.
flag. Immediately, they
Yep.
have to start putting all these messages. I mean, this is
Yep.
kind of weird.
They've been doing that since a few days before the election. Yeah,
But
they
I
started
mean,
putting
it's
that in.
already done. It's over. What do they want to say now? What's their bottom line now?
No
Like,
idea.
what's the end game here?
No idea. I have no idea why they're still doing it. It's been decided for, for over a month now.
Whalem03 says, "Where are you from, Price?" And I am from the U.S. I tried to highlight your comment, but somehow it didn't highlight herself.
Interesting.
I don't know what you mean. He blew her out. I may not want to know what you mean.
Mm,
I
Trump blew out the election and defeated Kamala Harris. I'm going to say that's how he meant
okay.
it was a blowout.
Okay.
I have no idea if that's what he meant, but that's how I'm
No, I
gonna
have a feeling you meant something else, but I'm just not gonna even go there.
that's how I'm gonna
Oh.
translate it there.
So Whalem03 says they've been doing that since the coup. Yeah, it always annoys me. Like, why are they trying to shove like articles and things?
Yeah.
Just let people do their videos. You're
Well, you
not
gotta,
teaching anybody. You're not helping anybody. You're not, teaching.
but you gotta fight that disinformation,
All right.
Not
Well,
sure how that's working, but
not sure either, but it is
good
what
on
it
you,
is.
YouTube.
Uh, hey, Eraserhead. So basically, I guess here, and this is what's interesting in this thing with with Matthew Baloney. He says that what you just said is that there could be a reason that they're not doing it, because if they start doing discovery, you start seeing the type of emails that these kind of extreme left activists, how they talk to each other. That may be the thing that worries him the most.
Mhm.
Worries him so much that he'd rather just pay Trump $16 million and run away.
Yeah.
But even so, I do think that we keep having these little moments that feel different. That there's nothing you can do. The second that he got elected, there has been sort of a shift, a change in feeling. Something feels different. And like I said, all these people, they were so like in euphoria with Biden, so in euphoria that he's gone. For 4 years, they kept talking about him over and over again. And it was like, and they also collectively all got together so he wouldn't be a candidate and all this other stuff. And at the end, nothing worked. Imagine that you have everything. You have the mainstream media, pushing this narrative. You have all of Hollywood. You have all the music industry. You have all these celebrities. Not that I even care about them, but you seemingly have all the power, all of what's considered the establishment backing you. And, and the guy like won on all fronts. He won the electoral. He won the popular vote. They have the Senate. They have the House. It's like it's really, I think, a slap in the face to a lot of these people that I think we're just living in some kind of euphoric bubble, which doesn't surprise me because we've been saying that about them for years now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The dead man says Matthew Baloney is a phony. I agree. Matthew
Yeah.
Baloney is a phony. He's trying to be like, I'm not the mainstream guy. I have all this kind of behind the scenes info. I'm such a great guy. But then, the next thing I know, he's like hiring Scott Mendelson. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's your guy. That's your expert, Scott Mendelson. I have so little respect for anybody that hires Scott Mendelson. Scott Mendelson used to be like the top Disney shill for Forbes. I feel like ever since his departure, that Paul Tassi guy has
Oh,
taken,
yes.
up the mantle. But Scott Mendelson used to be one of the most hardcore agenda peddling people. And he actually blocked me on Twitter. Paul Tassi blocked me too, but I will say that Paul Tassi has unblocked me. Not because he wanted to unblock me, it's just because everybody was laughing at him because he had blocked me. And I didn't even block him. Like, I was sitting there laughing with other people. I say laughing. I had like a post that had like, I don't know, I had like 500,000 people looking at. You know what I mean? It was something, maybe 1 million people. It's like the last thing you want is like a million people sitting and laughing at you for like being so silly. And then I think since then he's unblocked me. He'd rather just not block me than to have that happen. But yeah, I mean, basically, Scott Mendelson used to always like do all that kind of Disney shilling, Kathleen Kennedy, all this stuff. Once I just tweeted about something about him. I think, you know what I think I tweeted. He wrote about the movie Ghostbusters Afterlife, and you've never seen a guy so bitter and complaining that they brought the original Ghostbusters at the end. Like, it's as if like his life was ruined that these guys were there. Because I guess it's sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
once they brought them, it showed that like the idea of Ghostbusters 2016 with the ladies wasn't a good idea, and he was, I guess, one of the supporters of all the feminism and all that stuff. So it basically, he didn't like the narrative, so he was just sitting there and whining and whining. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, and all I wrote was, I just wrote something and made fun. Like, I didn't even have to make fun of him. I just said that like he's bitter because like people liked the movie and it had the old like, wait, have white men in it, or I don't know what I wrote. And the guy, like, that's it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he blocked me.
Yeah.
So he's like the right hand man of like Matthew Baloney. So how seriously can I take Baloney? You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Scott Mendelson. That, like, you have him in your corner, and you're not going to gain points. Not for me, at least.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes it's interesting to see their takes, these puck people, but not because I think they're so underground. They're also mainstream, but they sort of, if let's say Forbes, like, has a lot of friends at Disney, Puck sometimes has friends in another studio and they're trying to push another narrative. So it's interesting to see. Total grain of salt, these people. But I
Yeah,
will say that
you can't take it too seriously because
no, but I
it's
will say that if
obviously
with
showing.
everything that I just said about the guy, even he wrote that maybe something with the discovery would have been a problem. He then tries to say, or maybe you know, Bob Iger just didn't want to deal with it. Like, I don't know. He's trying to find like other things. But there's really no way around it. This is a very serious matter, and at least like even what they're saying in this article, these kind of mainstream media people, people in Hollywood, these kind of ultra left, whatever, Democrat lawyers, a lot of people are really frowning upon this settlement. But it is what it is. Trump can walk away here and feel like he managed to get one over on them, and that's just one thing that I saw today. The other thing is that there was some kind of did you see that there's like a transformer character within a
Yes,
Pixar movie,
yes.
and
So there was there's an upcoming Pixar film uh, called Win or Lose.
I think I did.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the upcoming film Win or Lose, and apparently it's about a baseball team, kids baseball team or something, and then it spends time in the film kind of showing you the lives of some of the different characters off the field. And one of the stories that was supposed to be part of the original version of the film was going to be that one of the players, and there's even, if you go out, you can find there's some of the animatics that were produced for it that have been that made their way around. I'm not sure how, but there were some animatics for it showing that there was going to be a character who she goes into the restroom, and when she's in front of the mirror, she starts seeing herself changing in the mirror and can't quite recognize who she's supposed to be, and she becomes uncomfortable with being in the girls restroom. And there's various other things that happen as part of that, but essentially they were going to be implying that this was a young person who was going to be experiencing some sort of gender dysphoria and potentially going to be a transformer. And
I
so
see.
yes, as it kind of mentions here in that New York Times article, I've read a couple of others about it. It says Disney basically says when it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own, and to do so in private. Yeah, that's
That
exactly it, Disney.
The thing is, it's so logical and it's so just a regular statement, but coming from them, it is crazy. It's like
Oh, yeah.
this is a real. There's been a feeling, and I don't know why. I feel like from the rise of his, with his reelection, I really think that there's this kind of sentiment that this whole pendulum is swinging back very, very hard
Yeah.
against all these kind of woke narratives. Uh,
Well, and pushing this stuff, I think the first thing that a lot of people are recognizing is that pushing this stuff on children has been a loser for them in a lot of ways. Pushing the gay agenda, LGBTQ, all of this stuff into children's entertainment, it has lost them massive amounts of support. Lots and lots of people have walked away from Disney productions. There were people who were, looking at the latest Pixar production, looking, Inside Out 2. People sitting back and saying, I'm just going to have to wait and find out if it's, what's in it, because I can't trust Disney anymore that this is going to be appropriate for my kid." And as it turns out, that may have been one of the first productions that they intervened in and said, "No, no, no, take out the gay stuff. Take out the take out this stuff that's inappropriate for for the younger
Here,
audience.
what that annoys me is that I really feel like as a society we were in a much more sort of call it progressive place. I think people didn't care about any of this stuff, and it's only when they started saying we have to push it into every single thing that kids watch. We have to push a lot
Absolutely.
of it all the time. It has to be all the time for the children. That's when it started becoming like, isn't that just a bit over the top? I said it. I'm trying to think now. Oh, I said it in that Skeleton Crew episode 3 review, and, what I said was they have that, this is a Disney Star Wars show, that nobody's watching. In episode 3, there's a girl, and she has 2 mothers. Now,
Mhm.
what I was saying in my video is that notice how all the kids seem to they have, like, a single parent
Yeah,
situation,
yeah. There's
except
there's 2 mothers, and not one of the other kids is shown to have an intact
family
family
unit.
group. Yeah,
Yeah. Basically, the only healthy family unit, the only way that you could have like two parents that's like a more standard family unit, if it's two women. And then I was also looking at stuff like The Acolyte. They push this into every program.
yep.
Make a point. Do not show a man and a woman in a relationship that's fine. Don't show a mother and father with a kid. That's considered like quote unquote abnormal. They don't want to show that at all. If they can even show like a father who's weak and irresponsible and dumb, they like to do that too. Maybe sometimes even if it's a single mother, she'll be more girl bossy. Maybe they'll give her that. But if you want like a full family unit, has to be an LG couple. And I just think that it's an obsession at this point. It's not like, okay, well, all the shows are this, and one time they did it, like, okay, they showed this example that could happen in society. These are shows for little kids. What do little kids think when they can't see in any show that there's a man and a woman, that they're in a couple, or that they have a kid, or they're even good parents, or anything? And then people later
Yeah.
wonder, oh, why are all these children behaving so weird? Like, why are they acting strange? I mean, there's no way around it. This stuff does at the end shape people. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that movies are everything and that they you can't be your own person. If you watch a movie, it doesn't mean you have to be like that movie. But listen, when I grew up, I think that watching movies, even I knew enough to know that some things were silly or they kind of were exaggerated or whatever it is. But there were enough stories like, we talk about Star Wars where there's a guy who, Luke Skywalker, his arc, his, hero's journey. I think that that's something that's like a pretty positive example for kids.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you still it's kind of odd that we would say that entertainment is so important, but it is. Entertainment helps to define the culture. It helps to inform, especially with younger people. It helps inform their morals, the mores that society sort of holds as sacred, and how we expect the children growing up to act. It informs a lot of that stuff for these kids as they're growing up. That's why for generations we read things like fairy tales. The fairy tales were not there to be fantastic, oh look, entertaining things. Yes, they were entertainment, but they were entertainment that was filled with values, teaching kids, hey, don't trust strangers. Be careful what you wish for. All of these different things that were taught in things like Aesop's fables, they were all about teaching children morals. And it's always been that way. And so when we start to have all of this stuff, it's one thing to have this shoved into uh a comedy on television late at night, or to have it in a film for an adult where you've got a couple that's gay or whatever. And again, I'm not saying that necessarily that has to be removed from every part of entertainment.
No,
As
it existed and people didn't care. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say, that we already reached a point where people didn't care, and
yeah,
then they're
and
like, "Okay, well, now let's shove this into every," and it's not even just that, it's
yeah,
everything around it.
yeah,
And I said this in my video, Lucasfilm and Disney, it's not even that they're even taking a group and trying to promote it. They're taking one group, trying to show it in a negative light while showing another group, boosting that group at the expense of the other group that they don't like. This is
absolutely.
this is a form of discrimination. It's
Yeah,
no longer a situation of inclusion or diversity or anything like that. And I think that the pushback from people like me and you, for all these years, these kind of the past several years, I think the pushback from us has been exactly because of this.
Yeah, and the thing is they see it as a zero-sum game. If they're not winning, they're losing. If they're not tearing down the opposition, then they're falling behind. They can't just try to build up a positive vision of a gay couple or something. They have to tear down traditional family units. They have to tear down heterosexual couples. They have to make them look, embarrassing or dysfunctional. They have to make sure that the men are not masculine and that the women are in charge. There's all kinds of stuff, and again, a lot of this stuff that came in over time. I think a lot of people just kind of ignored it. They're like, yeah, okay, fine. We're going to have Ellen on TV and there's that sitcom where the lady's gay, whatever. I'm not going to watch it, but whatever. But it's when, a couple of people brought it up in the chat, Whalem 03 and Rockstro, talking about how a lot of people did not care. It's when they started inserting this stuff into children's entertainment, when they started pushing this on kids, that a lot of parents and even people who aren't parents just might feel a little bit more conservative about these things, saying that that's not okay, that you're trying to recruit impressionable children into this and presenting them with this stuff that they're not quite ready to understand yet. They can't be. Well, I don't want to go too far into it, but Murray basically said also that it also used to be more proportional, right? And I agree with that as well. It used to be a little bit more proportional, where it was like, yeah, you had this group, the group of friends or whatever in the sitcom, and there was one of them who was gay, and like, okay, we can, that's fine, whatever. Especially when they would make that character not this flaming, annoying, uh you know character that it was just infuriating, because they were just outrageous all the time. It's like, being a homosexual was not their only identity. And then there was, with the proportionality, like, yeah, it's like now every show, you can't have a show on television today where either the lead character or one of the main characters in the story is homosexual, and they're mentioning it all the time. They have to talk about it all the time. And so it's wild how much they have to squeeze this into entertainment all over the place. And I think it is definitely very telling that somebody like Disney, that they had these storylines. They apparently had some potential. There were some storylines in Inside Out 2 that were dropped. And there's very specifically from this new show, Win or Lose, that was being done by Pixar, is going to be coming out. Actually, I think it already started, or may have already started on Disney Plus. In the 8 episodes that were in there, that there was going to be a character who was struggling with their gender identity, and they said, nope, we're going to take it out. Right, we're gonna take out that particular storyline, the whole pride centric thing that they were gonna do about that. And with that character, the character is still appears in the show. They haven't been like erased from it, but the whole thing with them struggling with their gender identity and stuff as a child, that has been removed from the show. And for them to come out and say, uh, parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline. Do you remember what Disney got all up in arms about and ended up costing their company billions? Do you
Right,
remember?
the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. That was the most important thing, that they wanted to talk to 3-year-old kids about their gender.
Exactly. This
Yeah,
is
no,
essentially a total repudiation of what happened with that quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill, which was literally, people were opposed to it. The people that were supporting it were simply saying, we don't want this stuff being taught to children in elementary school.
The fact that these
Keep
guys
this away from
pushed
the younger
back and
kids.
everything that they've done is such a disgrace. I think that, children, I don't remember who was it that said, "Oh, like, children should be left alone," and then, like, they tried to cancel people have tried to cancel people because they say, "Well, you should really leave children alone,"
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't understand what's controversial about that. I think that, children, when they're 4 or 5 years old or 6 years old, they don't know what's going on. You can't go and expect them to say that they're gonna say that they're a different gender or whatever it is. It's to think that somebody wanted to do this, is that to me looks like insanity.
Absolutely. I mean, they're kids are highly impressionable at that point,
Of
and
course.
and they need that's when they're learning what the boundaries are, and again, like the social mores and stuff like that. What kind of values do we hold as a society? And it's extremely confusing for them. Look, if you're an adult and you make that choice, if you're homosexual, if you're going to be a transformer, whatever, if you're an adult, that's your choice, and I'm not going to tell you you can't do that with your life. You can have medical procedures, take drugs, hormones, whatever. That's your choice as an adult. But to drive that down and start pushing that on younger kids who can't understand the choices that they're making. They can't understand the confusing things that you're trying to tell them.
It's too much to ask of them, and it's not letting them just grow up naturally, you know
No,
what I
it's
mean?
not letting them just experience their life, experience, puberty, experience, all of the confusing and uncomfortable things that as a society, it's a universal experience. I know that it's different for some people. It's different for women and it's different for men, but I can tell you that everyone that I know, when you go through puberty, it's confusing and it's uncomfortable. And yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable in your body sometimes. And that's completely normal. To just be going and telling these children, well, there's something wrong with you, rather than saying, you know what? Everybody goes through this and it's going to be okay. Why don't you,
But y
grow up and we'll support you through going through these things, and instead of trying to tell them, well, if today you don't necessarily feel very feminine, then you must be a man.
a and
It's
just
wild.
if we zoom out, considering, like, what you said with Florida and what happened there, and considering how tied they were to the administration. There's even, I think, Dana Walden is good friends with Kamala Harris. They were so intertwined with these kind of ultra extreme leftist, politicians and ideologies and all that stuff. The fact that they're doing this now, uh, I do feel, and that's why I was saying even in the thumbnail, I feel like that Disney are feeling the heat. Also, another thing, notice how they
Absolutely.
did the Oscars. They brought Conan O'Brien. A lot of people said that was like a much more kind of middle of the road choice. They would
Mhm.
have brought one of those kind of Jimmy Kimmel or even a Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert. Those guys would have been whining about Trump the whole time and
Oh,
doing
yeah.
all this stuff. They chose a guy that they think maybe he'll just actually tell a few jokes. People generally like him. He's not overly political. He's old school kind of with his comedy. So I guess what I'm saying is we've seen that. We've seen this change, this shift here. We've
Yeah.
seen
And
it certainly feels like there's a shift going on. And also even today we saw that Nate Moore guy is sort of being brushed off there. Uh there was an article. You know who Nate Moore is? He's a producer at Marvel. And he was one of
yeah.
those producers that he did like the Eternals and all this other stuff. Let me see if I can find an article. So today, they worded a nice thing as though, oh, like we're parting ways because he's gonna go produce stuff. But but the thing is that let me share this instead. This Nate Moore guy was like Lieutenant Woke or whatever it is. It's like you know what I'm saying? Of the
Yeah, he
MCU,
was he was the producer, he was a producer for Black Panther, Eternals, Wakanda
right?
Forever, and of course, Brave New World.
Right,
So
exactly. He was very, very heavy into the identity politics. And again, it's not that I love saying the word woke or whatever, but I mean, at this point, you have other people that are like on both side of the spectrum using the word, and I really at this point, I don't think there's a way to avoid it.
mhm,
If you want, you can just say that he liked to peddle identity politics. That would be true as well. But the thing is that there's a spin in this article that's like, oh, everything's great. He's going to do whatever. He's leaving, like, he's going to do production. But as my friend Script Doctor said earlier, and I actually agreed with him regardless, is that I think that this whole article is basically a way to explain that he's being shooed away, but done with a smile.
yeah. Yeah, that's how they like to do things in Hollywood. They want to make it look like, it's not, it's you're not being fired, it's a promotion, right? You're not being fired, this is a new opportunity. That's how
Let's
they
see what
like
they
to do
say.
it. Or they want to celebrate your long career.
Right. Kevin
And
Feige had a statement. Nate is a fantastic executive and colleague, as well as a wonderful friend to all of us here at Marvel Studios. He's fired. He has been a core member of our team since 2010, and his influence will continue to reverberate in our storytelling. I should hope not. Although we'll miss him a great deal, we look forward to watching what he does next, while also having the good fortune of working with him in a new way on our next Black Panther movie. After let's see, the thing is, probably he was already contracted probably to be involved in that Black Panther one. Maybe
yeah,
he had a contract that if he did the previous ones, he's still tied to the next ones. So I assume that it's just not easy to get rid of him from Panther. And
yeah,
this is also kind of like a soft landing. They're parting ways, but they're still buddies. But I think that they got rid of Victoria Alonso. They're getting rid of Nate Moore. All of the faces that were somehow tied with more of the activism seem to be on their way out. And I don't believe that Nate Moore on it, but left to his own devices, would part ways from Marvel. You know what I'm saying?
no,
Usually,
I know
if you're
exactly what you
tied
mean.
to that golden goose, you don't let it go. You let it go when somebody tells you, "Hey, why don't you go look for another job?" That's like when you let it go. But let's see what Nate says. Nearly everything I know about producing I've learned from my time at Marvel Studios. I feel lucky to have worked with a group of people who love filmmaking and storytelling as much as my Marvel colleagues and the cast and crew of our films, but I couldn't be more excited to apply my experience and passion for film towards theatrical movies in all genres, including returning to the world of Wakanda for Black Panther 3. Yep, I don't know what to tell you.
Sure.
I feel
Yeah.
like part of the reason that he's on the way out, one of the reasons has to be that stupid Captain America
Oh,
Brave New
yeah.
World.
It's gonna be an absolute disaster when that comes out.
I
Uh,
think so. I think that once they kept on investing more and more money into it, like they're
yeah.
doing, they've already filmed it like 3 times. It's cost like 400 and something million. I think at this point, they probably recently looked at the movie. It's probably a complete and utter disaster.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
that
after things like the Eternals and all this stuff, they said, "Hey, Nate, hey, buddy," and then that was it.
yeah. Well, if you look at I mean, if he was a producer on Black Panther, Eternals, Wakanda Forever, and Captain America: Brave New World, that's one hit for Marvel. Black Panther, and that wasn't even really that good of a movie. It just got a lot of support, and people wanting to see it. You know, Captain America: Brave New World is going to be, I think, it's going to be their all-time low. They're going to lose more money on Brave New World than they lost on any Marvel movie to date. It's going to be a disaster.
I think it'll be a competition with the Marvels, but it's certainly going to be a disappointment. Still, Captain America, I don't know. I still think that the characters in this thing are going to be a little more likable by people than the Marvels. The Marvels, like there was zero interest. I think that this one could do a bit better. I think they spend more money on it than the Marvels, surprisingly, because they spent a lot of money on that one too. So
Yeah,
this is could be just a bigger disaster financially. But
yeah.
I think that it'll have some people going to see it. I just don't think it's gonna do extremely well.
No, I don't think it is. I think a lot of people have. I think they're aware of where the Marvel universe is right now. at this point. That the thing is, the big fans, they've been going to see these movies, and they've seen all of them, even the more recent disasters like we had in the past year, 2 years. And yeah, I just don't know that there's going to be much excitement behind this movie. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, but I would guess if this movie really does cost what they say it has at this point, once you add in marketing, you're talking about, all in on Disney's side of close to 550 million dollars, half a billion, which means they're going to have to break 1.2 billion just to break even. And I would bet anything that, given the when this movie's coming out and the very negative test screening you're reported so far, even as recently as this past month, they've had another bad test screening that I bet this does at best Ant-Man 3 money. So 320, 400 at most, which means they're going to be losing 2 to 300 million dollars on this movie. So yeah, it's not going to be pretty. But yeah, so long, Nate. Best of luck. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yep, that's probably what Kevin Feige is telling good old Nate as we speak. No, Nate can join his good friend
Yep.
Victoria Alonso. Maybe they can start a production company on their own. But even if now they want to start making good movies, it'll take a while until we ever see these movies.
Oh
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
it's gonna take some time.
Maybe like in 2 years from now, there'll be some MCU
Yeah.
movies that are not going to be crap. But
I just hope the movie theaters survive, because I think that 2025 is going to be a wasteland. There are so many films coming next year that I don't think anyone is going to be excited for. The
there's a lot of
only
crap out there for
the
sure.
only thing that's going to keep those theaters running is going to be indie stuff, and hopefully like they have this year, we'll see a lot more re-releases next year. I think those have done really well for theaters this year, so maybe they'll keep their numbers up by getting lots of re-releases out there in the theaters. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm worried for theaters next year, because I don't see anything being I don't see a Deadpool and Wolverine next year. And I'm not seeing. Obviously, there'll be the second Wicked film. Thunderbolts. That one's that one's
That
up
one
in the
looks
air.
like another stinker.
It's up in the air. Some of the early buzz, people said it's actually pretty well done. I don't think a lot of people are going to be drawn to the theater to see it, though. It's got a bunch of characters in it nobody cares about. It's tied to Disney Plus series that nobody watched. I honestly just don't think anyone's going to care. But
There's one thing that I have to tell you that bothers me. The fact that they sort of decided that Florence Pugh is the replacement to Scarlett Johansson,
yeah,
that is an issue. And I'll tell you what, she was fine if you wanted her to have a sister or whatever it is. She's not she's not like the same.
no,
How do I explain this, Professor?
she
She
doesn't have the same presence on screen as
yes, she
Scarlett
doesn't have.
Johansson.
That's right, Professor. She doesn't have the same on-screen presence as Scarlett Johansson.
I'm not saying I hate Florence Pugh. I kind of like
No,
her.
she's sort of like a cute girl
She's
next
yeah,
door, whatever
yeah,
it is. It's
yeah.
fine.
And
Maybe
and
there
the
was
way that they chose to take that character, where she's a little more quirky, I thought that worked fine in that movie. It's still a
I just
terrible
didn't
movie,
love
but
also the Russian accent and all that
yeah.
stuff. I
Oh,
don't
she's
know.
dropped that. That's gone. She dropped that like halfway through the movie.
What the Florence Pugh dropped it?
Yeah. Well, and definitely when she was in the series, the TV series, she
The
dropped that.
Hawkeye one?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now if she dropped. I believe you. I hope
Yeah.
I never hear that Russian accent again.
It was bad.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Speaking of Russian accents, you know that I saw that movie, Craven the Hunter.
Oh boy, yeah, Craven. Packed theater.
I was the only person in the theater. I have a funnier story to tell you. I was the only person in the theater. I took a picture. I showed everybody like on Twitter that I'm the only person in the theater, and I really was. And then the movie starts, and about 1 minute into the movie, a couple comes in and sits down. So then it's me and a couple in this whole theater. And then the funniest thing happened. They saw about 5 or 10 minutes of the movie. I'm not making this up. The couple got up and left. And I thought to myself, like, what did they see in this
Wow.
10 minutes? Like, I'm not saying it was a good movie, but I'm just wondering, like, I thought to myself, what did they see in this in these 10 minutes that they said, okay, this is it. This is where we draw the line. We got to go. I thought to myself that maybe they told themselves that if they sneak into another theater, they can just watch a different movie.
Yeah.
That's what I think they ended up doing.
Yeah.
I really suspect that that's the reason they got up, that they saw it. They're like, this is stupid. Let's see. There's another movie in one of those other theaters, and they just ran away.
Yep. If we leave right now, we can probably catch the start of that other movie. Okay. Yeah.
I am 100% sure that because I have no other explanation. They sat there, they got up within a few minutes and left, and once again, I was alone in the theater. I started laughing. It was just so ridiculous. But before, you know what? Before we get to Craven the Hunter, because I think if we go by the order of our stories, I don't know. Do you follow Yellowstone?
I have never watched Yellowstone. I watched one episode of one of the spin-off ones, the one with Harrison Ford. That is it night.
That's a pretty good show. That's actually one of their
Yeah, I
better
would
things.
actually come back to that one and like to finish it. I did enjoy that episode. I just, just so many things to watch. It was like, yeah, this is all right. I kind of enjoy this, but never
You
really
know,
came back to it. But no, I
you have
never
to
got
kind of get
started.
into it. It's one of those
Yeah.
shows that you kind of have to get into. It's not as easy, like an action-packed whatever, but I actually thought that the Harrison Ford one was pretty good.
Yeah, that's what
It
I'd heard. It was that was probably the better of all of them. But no, I never did get started with Yellowstone. Part of it was when it originally started, like it was weird, like it was being made by Paramount, but it was on Peacock or something. Was that it? I can't remember.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I
basically,
didn't have the service it was on when it originally came out. So yeah, I know I didn't see the first few seasons and kind of figured I'd just wait till the whole thing was done and and see if it was worth watching.
let me see Yellowstone finale, if there's anything.
I had seen a story or two about it. Obviously, there was a big story. I think we talked about it on here about Kevin Costner not coming back for the second half of that final season, and them sort of unceremoniously killing him off in what was apparently a suicide, but then it turns out it wasn't. It was an assassination,
Something like
and
that.
then
What are all these stupid ads? Why can't I just put the thing that I want?
Saks Fifth Avenue really wants you to buy some clothes.
Yeah, they're not really my scene. Okay, so basically what I wanted to show is this thing. Please don't play a video. Please don't play a video. Ugh, okay.
It's chugging.
It's trying to play one. But what I wanted to say is that sometimes my instincts are correct. I actually a lot of times my instincts are correct. And I have said from day one with this feud with Kevin Costner and with Taylor Sheridan, with the producer, that at the end, these guys have big egos, and the people that really lose out are the people that actually watch this show. There's nothing really more annoying that there's people watching your show and you really take them for granted. I can't say that I think more highly of Taylor Sheridan or of Kevin Costner these days. The show started off. I think that one of the good things about the show at the beginning is that there weren't such big expectations from it. I think that Paramount had their network, Paramount Plus, and they really just wanted people to take notice of their network. So they had this Yellowstone show, and maybe they thought it could lure some people in. It had the first season, it had another season, had another season, and maybe there was some, overall decent buzz around it. But the real thing that happened is once the coup hit and people were looking for shows, people kind of found this show, and suddenly this became a thing. And I think that the show ultimately became a victim of its own success.
Mhm.
Because as long as they were like the little show that could, or sort of a premiere show on this kind of obscure network that's just trying to get off the ground, it had some viewers. It was considered a quality show, but I don't think that it had that kind of following. After those 3 seasons and after, like you said, it went to Peacock, and that's another thing. Initially, Paramount didn't even have their own streaming service. So they made a deal with Peacock, that, with NBC, that it would go to NBC Universal, it would go to Peacock. But then what happened is that the coup hit, and everybody was sitting around and watching this on Peacock. And then they're like, "Oh no! Like everybody, this is like the biggest hit ever. Why did we give them our rights? Why are?" And it's such an annoying contract, I guess, that it's really difficult to get the rights back. I don't know at what point or how it's going to work, but
Yeah.
it wasn't good how it played out for Paramount. It was great the way it played out for Peacock.
Mhm.
Regardless, though, that's when they started making all these other spin-offs, because Peacock doesn't have any connection to the spin-offs. So they started convincing this Taylor Sheridan guy, make 1888, make 1923, make anything you want. You want to make something, go make it. And and like I said, when there's something small and a group of people are like passionate about it and working and sort of growing it, it's cool. But when there's a strange, almost overnight, massive success like what happened with this, I think that that's really what caused the whole show to go off the rails. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, like you said, a victim of their own success is that there becomes so much pressure in what you're writing, and then how much you have to pay the stars because it's successful, and all. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that contributes to shows like that kind of.
And they started suing each other. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that one of the actors, he wanted like a line of clothing that's like more like a ranch, and Taylor Sheridan, the guy that created, he's saying, well, he's using elements that are like my Yellowstone brand. So he's using my Yellowstone brand to sell clothes. So he starts suing his own actors because they're selling clothes that look like his clothes. Once you reach that point, you know that you're in trouble. Just in general, you know what I mean? Once that's the thing that's on your mind, like in a production, rather than, how do we wrap up this story? How do we tell like a full story here? Even season 4, that Kevin Costner was there, that season 4, you could tell there was a significant dip in quality. Meaning, season 1 was good, season 2 was very good, season 3, I would say, was excellent, season 4 was like okay, and season 5 just, even the first half with Kevin Costner, it was really wobbly, but you still watched because you like him and you like the story and you like whatever. The second half, once he left, went off a cliff in a way that I can't even explain to you.
Yep.
And in addition, like Taylor Sheridan in the last few episodes, he had a character that I think once or twice you saw him during the series. Suddenly you see him every second. Like he's in the show, he's walking around, he's riding horses. It's like, dude, like we don't need to see you. We don't care about you. And everybody's like frustrated the way they did this thing with Kevin Costner. At the same time, don't get me wrong, Kevin Costner himself has a big ego. Kevin Costner should have understood that after years that he was still respected, but wasn't like at the forefront of this type of massive hit. Once he was here, all he needed to do was finish this show. He had like 6 episodes. Just do your episodes and do right by the people that put you in that kind of superstar status again. And then what does he do? No, I have to go make my own movies. Why did he have to make his own westerns? Because it annoyed him that Taylor Sheridan was getting all this credit and everybody was telling him how great he is. In addition, all these spin-offs that Yellowstone has, Kevin Costner didn't get a production credit on them. He doesn't get any piece of that pie. And I think that, he started getting annoyed that he's not, that so much credit is going to Taylor Sheridan. He also claimed, and I don't know if this is true, that he's the one that told Taylor Sheridan that, wouldn't it be cool doing shows like earlier on or whatever it is. And I think that he felt that Taylor Sheridan took some of his ideas and went and made these other shows. I don't know if that's true or not. All I know is that these two guys have big egos. They both acted like jerks, and the show suffered greatly for it. And at the end, between all their bickering and all their nonsense, the people that actually put them there, those are the ones that at the end are taken for granted. It almost feels like a Game of Thrones type of situation.
Yep. Yep.
Like
Man.
you remember what happened with Game of Thrones?
Oh yes. That was so frustrating. I was a big fan of Game of Thrones. I really did enjoy it. And yeah, that final season with it just being so rushed, and the producers, oh, I've got to move on to these next project and the next project, whatever. So we gotta wrap this up as quickly as we can. And of course, they also they didn't really have any material. They just had sort of notes from from the original author to go on. And yeah, it just fell apart so badly. It was so badly executed in the end. It was extremely frustrating as a fan of that show.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think that a lot of people felt at the time is that they really take advantage of their audience. Uh,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's a crummy feeling when you're the one. See, a show can only succeed. All these people can start making money and doing all these wheeling and dealing and all this stuff. They can only really raise in value if you spend the time and watch. If people like you sit and watch this thing and support what they're doing. And the fact that, like, in this equation, their egos, against each other were more important than the people that actually watch their show. To me, that's a shitty thing.
Mhm.
Like, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, even though Costner has, like, reasons that sound very reasonable when he explains his side of the story, and Taylor Sheridan, they all have good publicists and they know how to explain the story. I am 100% sure if these guys would have gotten together, really thought to themselves, what's good for the fans, they find a way to carve out some time, no matter how inconvenient or not inconvenient. There was a deal to be made. Bring Kevin Costner back, film a few episodes, even if he's not in all the 6 episodes that are left, film a few, have his departure seem more organic, and then have the final few episodes sort of wrapping up the storyline. And I think that there was a way to get it done. And the fact that they didn't, I really think that it's crappy. So I was very disappointed with the finale. And between you and me, forget about Kevin Costner being there or not. Just such poor writing. To say that he went off a cliff, Taylor Sheridan, with these episodes, it's an understatement. Just so much sappy crap, filler nonsense. It's embarrassing, really. Like, it felt like I was watching a Disney Plus show.
Oof. No, that's an insult if I've ever heard
Right, but you
one.
know exactly what I mean. See, that's the funny thing is that Disney Plus now I can say that and
Yeah.
everybody knows what I mean. When you're saying it kind of felt like a Disney Plus show, nobody's thinking that that means that it's good. I think that at this point they've established that if it's a Disney Plus show, it's crap. But
Yep. It cost way too much money and didn't deliver in the end because it was poorly written and poorly paced. Yeah, that would be the Disney Plus formula.
totally. And the fact that he put himself like in, I mean, this guy, he puts himself there, uh, inside the show. I don't know. Don't really know what to tell you. But in any case, the show is over. And the one
Yep.
thing I'll say is that why did I bring up Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones without that final season, let's be honest, even the 6 and 7 abbreviated seasons weren't that great, but they still were good enough that you kind of let it slide. Without that final season, if there was a good final season to Game of Thrones, you would have said, well, that's one of the best shows ever made. That would have been its legacy. It's one of the best shows ever made. Today, though, nobody says that, and the reason is because they ended it so badly that I don't think anybody can say that about it. Am I right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh,
so I guess what I'm saying is that with Yellowstone, it's something similar. It's like you can say it started off good. You could say the first 3 seasons are good, but the next 2, just go off a cliff, and the last one is just keeps getting worse and worse. So no, it's not going to be in the kind of these kind of all-time great show list. It shouldn't be there. Along with Game of Thrones, it also shouldn't be there.
yep.
Being a great show means you, especially when it comes to this kind of drama that's telling like an ongoing story but there's actually like a beginning, middle, and end to it. If you don't stick the landing in any way, if you really fumble the later part of the show, you can't be in that category of like all-time great shows.
No, you got to stick the landing if you're gonna really be considered one of the all time greats. And
D-
yeah, there's been a lot of series that have not managed that in their last season or even in their final episode of just completely crap the bed, and everyone just leaves with a bad taste in their mouth, and then they don't want to come back to it. They don't want to rewatch it because that final episode, it's like everything you're doing leads up to that last episode, that last season, or that last episode. I haven't gone back and watched any of Game of Thrones. I thought it was a great show. I rewatched some of the seasons while it was originally airing. I went back
Right.
and
It was
and
that
rewatched them,
exciting. It
and that
was that
last season
exciting.
just
Yeah.
left such a bad taste in my mouth. Like, this is where it's all headed. It's headed to this episode that's so dark you can't see it, and it's headed to this ridiculous heel turn, uh, into an insane villain for this character that everyone's come to love throughout the series, and then the really stupid ending with John killing her, and then just going back to the north because what the hell else would he do? Like, it's just that's where it's going. I don't care. I don't care anymore.
It was so embarrassing the way they ended. It didn't even feel like the same show. And have you ever watched Mad Men?
That's one I've never gotten into. I did watch some of it when it was originally airing. I watched a few episodes here and there, but it's definitely one that's kind of on my list, like my long term. Like, I really want to go back and watch that show.
So let me tell you something. That show again, I think the first 4, maybe is it 4 or 5 seasons, I don't know what, great show. And then I don't know what happened. Again, it always feels like the same with these kind of Sheridan or whatever. I don't know what they had an issue. Suddenly people, the success go to their head. The 6 and 7 season, in my opinion, are just a disgrace. And
Yeah.
it's so unfortunate because up until that 5th season, it could have been one of those kind of all-time great shows. It was so interesting and so different and had its own kind of vibe, and it was fun to watch, and it had its own thing going on. And I just don't like it when somebody just drops the ball in the way they did.
Yep. It's so disappointing. And it's again, you get that feeling that they're taking the fans for granted, and that hurts too. You know. So
In the case of Mad Men, I think that it was less Game of Thrones and Yellowstone. 100%, I felt that fans were taken for granted. With Mad Men, I thought that they started like having a dispute with a guy. I think the main producer and writer, and he wanted more money and
yeah,
more creative and control, more this and more that. Maybe I don't know if it was as blunt as taking his viewers for granted like those other guys did, but I'm saying that perhaps with all of his stupid fights with the network he did in a way forget the fans, I guess, and to make a good show. There was also, and this is something that I do say that it kind of overlaps with Yellowstone. Yellowstone in season 1 and 2 and 3, you had these dudes. They're like on a ranch. It feels like there's men doing manly stuff on a ranch. There's some bad guys that come along. These guys get into like beef with them. Sometimes guns are like pulled out and like real things go down there in that place. And there's all these like men, and it's a very kind of manly type of show. Season 4, after it became like a household thing and all these people were watching it, suddenly there's like a woman working on the ranch. This other lady shows up. These ladies, those ladies. I'm not saying like, listen, there was the daughter of Kevin Costner character who was a woman, and you could say she's a strong woman or whatever it is. I actually liked her character. It's not that you can't do it in a way that's likable. You know what I'm saying? I actually liked that character. I'm just saying that it just started feeling that like there's too much compromise on the show. Like somebody invited Taylor Sheridan to a boardroom and said to him, "Taylor, you're doing such a great job. We were speaking with advertisers, and according to them, the demographic of this and between this age and that age of the female, we're not getting enough of it. Could you maybe throw in a female with a cowboy?" Do you get what I'm trying to say?
yeah, yeah,
There was this kind of weird feeling like something was going down, that it wasn't as cool as it was before. I'm not saying there weren't women and they weren't cool and they weren't doing stuff before, but I'm just saying something just didn't feel 100% the same. And then the next thing like I said, even the way they ended. I mean, again, I'm not going to spoil it in case you ever watch it, but there was something that I would even say that the very ending of it could be a bit of a, I don't know if to say woke or how to explain it to you. It had a little bit of essence, a little bit of something that it ended. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you this way. Initially, like the whole thing is that Kevin Costner's character was this stubborn old goat. He doesn't want people to come and take his land. He's old school. His family has been there for many like generations. He loves his land, and screw everybody that's going to come here and try to play games with him. That was what was fun about the show. You know what I mean? That was what was fun about it. Somehow, even in the up leading to his departure, and then in his departure and everything that went after, they managed to kind of put a damper on that.
Hmm.
I didn't need to put a damper. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know what? Sometimes I like to watch a show and show that until the last moment he got rid of all of the assholes that was trying to take his land away. You know what I mean? He has his cattle, he has his horses. You're not going to take his land. I don't know. Call me old
Yeah.
fashioned. That was the
Yeah.
charm of the show. I
Yeah.
liked it.
That was the whole idea.
That
Yeah.
was the whole idea.
You know?
Somebody comes along, he's like, "We're gonna take your land." He's like, "No, you ain't." And then, like, there's some violent things going on. People pull guns, all this stuff. That's what was fun. I don't know, and it's like happening in modern day too. That was fun. There was like it was kind of like a western, but pasted in modern day. And I think that the combination of modern day with the western was done really nicely. So yeah, they ruined it. That's the bottom line. And Taylor Sheridan, I like Tulsa King, and I like that show. I think mainly because like it has Stallone and Terrence Winter also weighing in.
Yeah.
Uh, I think Taylor Sheridan really, really blew it with Yellowstone, and it's always going to be a stain on its legacy.
Well, that's too bad.
Nothing we can
I
do.
guess there's gonna be a spin-off. This is what I've heard.
There's
They're
70
gonna spin
spinoffs. They're
off a
never going to
couple of
stop. As long as Taylor Sheridan can make episodes of something, they'll let him do it. It's the only thing. I'll give him credit. One thing. It's the only thing that Paramount does that actually works for them. Basically,
Yeah.
nothing works for Paramount. Everything is like a flop, except if Taylor Sheridan says like, "Hey, I can make this show," they'll immediately give a green light. Whatever he says. If he walks in now and he says like, "I want to do a show about a guy that like he's a chef and he flips burgers," done. 5 seconds later, he has a contract. The burger flipper.
Yeah.
He's already starting to film the burger flipper, and like within 14 days, there's like people filming the burger flipper.
Yeah. I would say there's gonna be another spin-off, like, taking place after this show, like a direct spin-off of there's gonna be one of his kids, I guess, a couple of his kids or something like that.
Basically, there was his daughter and this other guy, and they're
Yeah.
gonna do a thing with them. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I like those characters and I like the actors that played them, but man, this needed a real resolution. I don't like what they did, and like I said, the legacy isn't going to be kind to this show. It's not going to go down as an all time great.
Yeah.
Speaking of not going down as all time great, I saw Craven the Hunter.
Oh, yes.
Did you happen to watch that?
Oh, no. No. I haven't seen any of the, well, I take that I did see, um, the, Madam Web, on the high seas, but, I did not, just for the entertainment of it, but I have not seen any of the others, now that all of the Venom movies are on streaming, I might, just have a silly afternoon when I sit down with my son and we'll watch all the stupid Venom movies.
So yeah, I mean the thing is that let's see if I can share this one instead. Can you see it?
Yes.
Craven the Hunter bombs with $11 million opening weekend, worst start of Sony produced Marvel films. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Honestly, if I had to be honest, it wasn't as bad as Madam Web, and it probably wasn't as bad as Morbius, but that's really not saying much because it was still bad. It's just like you're wondering, was it as bad as Madam Web? It is worse. It's arguably worse, Madam Web. Madam Web is like laughably bad. It's laughably bad. This one, the thing about this Craven movie is that I think that if it didn't have people that are just annoying and don't know what they're doing, especially with the writing, it may have been a decent movie. I guess what I'm saying is, if you forced me, I wouldn't have thought this was a good idea to make this movie to begin with. But if you would have said, "Hey, we're forcing you to make this movie. Can you do something that doesn't suck?" Uh, Based on sort of the material, the source material they had there to their advantage, or all the options that they had, they could have made a movie that didn't suck. They could have made a movie that was even, maybe kind of fun, maybe kind of cool to watch. Those Venom movies are not great movies, but they're sort of a dumb, fun aspect, popcorn movie to them. And I think that they could have gone this route with this movie, but it really feels like it lacks any steady hand here, especially when it comes to the writing.
Yeah, I never expected much out of this movie. I mean, to be honest, these Sony, Spider-Man universe movies with no
Dumb
Spider-Man in
idea,
them,
dumb idea.
never, just even when they announced the idea for just Venom, even though I think the character of Venom, at least in the comics, has been really explored, and there's been some interesting stuff, kind of even transforming him into his own anti-hero of sorts. So that, that might could work. It depends on how they do it, but it might could work. But then the more they got into it, like I said, with Madam Web and then Craven the Hunter, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, oh, and more the infamous failure of Morbius as well. That I just, why are you doing this? This is
I mean, there
clearly.
were things. I just want to give you some highlights of this movie.
Oh, please.
So basically, the movie starts off, and the guy is like, he's in a Russian prison, and it's present day. He goes in and he kills some, like, mobster that's a Russian mobster. And then he escapes prison, and you could tell that he's sort of supernatural because he's like hopping over fences and like bouncing around in a way that like a normal human couldn't do. And that's like, then he leaves. Then what they do is that they jump back in time. And the first, maybe I feel like a third of the movie is so weak. I actually believe that the first scene, which is like more action orientated and is happening in that prison, I believe that that scene actually didn't wasn't initially planned to be at the beginning. I think that they put it at the beginning to start the movie off in like an action adventure pacing, and also because then later they said, "Well, we're showing the first 8 minutes to the public." These 8 minutes are amongst the better minutes in the movie. They're just showing it because they want it to feel as though there's like action. But then when you actually go watch it and you watch that first act, it's really a problem. So basically, they're teenagers, him and his brother, and their father is Russell Crowe, who's like this Russian criminal. And I guess he takes them to Africa because he wants them to shoot lions. But then there's this one lion, and he ends up like attacking and biting, the Craven guy. And then what happens is that because the lion has a drop of blood of his mixed in with the injuries of Craven, Craven, it makes him more like an animal because he merged the blood with the tiger.
Mm,
Are you
yes.
with me?
Magic blood. Yeah.
Magic blood. So then, first of all, there's the magic blood, but then this is the weirdest thing. Suddenly, out of nowhere, it's like they showed that this girl called Calypso. She basically visits her grandmother in Africa, like just a few hours earlier, and she gives her a tarot card. So then, like, she pops up out of nowhere when she sees the lion like attacked him, and he's laying there, and the bloods are like mixing. So she brings out this kind of flask with a secret beverage, and she shoves it down Craven's throat when he's like doing the blood thing with the tiger, and the combination of the tiger and the girl with the flask who conveniently happened to be there to to give him the flask of the water, that gives him the super strength.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then what happens is like he wants to
Sure.
live in the forest, or he's mad at his father. I don't know what, he's in the forest. Then it like jumps back. This whole old time thing with the teenagers seems to take forever. Finally, they jump back in time, so we're jumping after that whole situation we saw at the beginning with the prison, which really gave me the impression that they just cut it and put it at the beginning, just because they thought it would make the movie more interesting. Because if you had to just watch those like teenagers talking until he became the tiger, that's really a chore. So finally, he's the tiger. He's in present day, and then nothing makes sense. He's like, he finds this girl who, how I told you there's a girl that gave him a tarot card and an
Yes.
energy drink. So he
Yes.
finds her in present day in New York. If she was in Africa, what's she doing in New York? I don't even know. I think it's in New York. I think I don't even know at this point. In any case, he finds her, and yeah, like she's at a funeral, and he's like, "Oh, I took care of the people that did this. I guess the Russian people that he killed, they did something bad." What were the odds of that? You know what I mean? So then he tells her, listen, I have a list of criminals that I want to take out, and I need your help because you work for a fancy law firm, so you can give me their address and locations, and then I'll kill them all.
Sure.
And the thing is that you never even understand what this lawyer lady wants or doesn't want, what's motivating her, what's not motivating her. It's so poorly thought out and poorly written. And I feel like they didn't know in the comics. I think that this character is like a love interest to him. But in this one, it's like they didn't want the love interest thing going on, but they did want it and they weren't sure. And then at the same time, also, the actress has no chemistry with him. And her acting also wasn't good. And it seemed like, you know how in Madam Web they redubbed the villain? And they kept putting like different lines in his
Yes.
mouth.
Oh God, yes.
They tried to do something like that here in a few scenes with her, and I don't know why either. Like I guess until the last minute of editing, they couldn't really figure out what they wanted to do with this character, which it's really not a good sign. And yeah, so it just big fail. Russell Crowe, what a waste of talent. I think there was something to do with him. By the way, in this movie, at the end, there's also battles with like Rhino and all this other stuff, but it's all very, very kind of misguided. And I still will say, based on the cast, some ideas, some budgets, you could have made a decent movie here. But this is
Sure.
exactly like the product of a not good writing team with people that are just all over the place and don't have a real vision for why they're doing something.
It seemed like a very odd choice to do Craven the Hunter. I've never in the comics or in games or anything, I've never particularly thought that Craven was a very strong character or a particularly interesting character. To choose to do a film based strictly on him always seemed like a long shot for anything that would be even remotely enjoyable. But I'm not surprised at all that this is a failure. It seems so bad, and of course, it's been made by this team of all of these writers that have made all of these other Sony disasters that they put out, and I just don't know how they thought they were ever going to make money on this. I really don't. Whoever it is that was. Uh, who was greenlighting these projects needs to find another line of work.
By the way, before we go on, I know that a lot of people they watch our shows in different ways. Whatever platform you're on, if you're watching our stream right now and you're enjoying what we do here, make sure to make sure to subscribe to whatever channel, follow, like, whatever you can do. It would be really helpful. If you're on Rumble and you're kind of using the app, but you haven't signed up for Rumble, signing up for Rumble is free. So you could sign up for Rumble, and then if you could give us a like, that would be cool as well. Also, Professor R2 has his own channels, and you can check that out wherever there are channels. So
Yeah.
just wanted to get that out of the way.
Like
And
and
also,
subscribe.
I think that what's going on with Naughty Dog? I saw something in the
Oh
past few
boy.
days. There's
Yeah.
some kind of image I keep saying of some d girl that looks like a boy or something.
Oh boy. Okay. So
Maybe you could explain because 'cause I've been
during
so
so
busy
we
and I'm like,
talked
"What
about
is this?"
Yeah, on Thursday we talked about the Game Awards and we talked about some of the, different awards that were given out. Of course, there were speeches and, acceptance speeches and other stuff that was given during that. And they also premiered a few different games, new and upcoming titles, talked about and introduced a few of them. So they introduced a trailer for Naughty Dog's next game, which is Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. First of all, dreadful title. That's a terrible title. But Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. And so this is going to be their next big game, of course, written by Neil Druckmann, who's written a bunch of the other material at
I
Naughty
mean,
Dog.
aside from Last of Us 1, it sounds like anything this guy does is annoying, but go on.
Yes, yeah, he's consistently written garbage, and he's definitely somebody who is part of the, sort of the leftist identity cults, woke, as you would say, and he is a male feminist and all of those things, and so of course this new game, the lead character is a woman, a manly looking one at that, who you see in the trailer shaving her head. Uh, and oh, we have a super chat from the dead man. He says, the dead man for $4.99. He says, "Hello, Price and R2. I'm back." Well, welcome back, the dead
We're
man.
happy to have you back.
We're glad
It's
to have
awesome,
you
man.
here.
Thank you.
And you don't have to announce your presence, but we appreciate it, dead man.
No, we always
So
appreciate. Dead
yeah.
man can announce whatever he wants.
So yes, the new title coming from Naughty Dog is this intergalactic title starring this very mannish woman with a shaved head and a bunch of tattoos, and it has not gotten particularly good reception. I haven't checked recently to see what kind of responses it's getting on YouTube, but they shut down the comments almost immediately because they were not kind. And let's see. Oh, it's under Naughty Dog's account. Just curious to see here. 5 days ago. Right now, the dislikes or the upvotes 62,000, dislikes 150,000. So it's getting ratioed, not as heavily as some things that we've seen, but pretty badly. And people are just not happy with it. They're saying, look, it's very clearly exhibiting the same crap that we've seen from all of these other game titles that we're not interested in. We don't want more masculine female protagonist. She's going to be a lesbian, right? And they're going to have to make that a part of the game. She's going to have some sort of love interest or something. uh they're good, or maybe she's not even a lesbian, maybe she's something else, I don't know. But it has just, I think, ignited a lot of people online talking about it, just because it's like there's game after game after game that we've seen this year with all of this identity politics, the wokeness in it, that have just failed. These studios are collapsing under the weight of these games. Concord, we saw very, very huge disaster for Sony. We saw the Dragon Age Veilguard. Just I believe right now they were saying that they would need BioWare would need 10 million sales to make a profit off that game, and right now they're only at maybe 3 million in sales.
Wow.
So that's doing horribly for them. May end up being the end of their studio. Unlikely it would just completely collapse. It would just be bought up by somebody. But there's plenty of other examples of these games that have been coming out this year, and it's really the gaming community has really gotten together. They're organized now against this stuff. Realizing that if we're all going to step up and say we don't want it, we're not going to pay for it, that we do have some power. We don't have to put up with this kind of stuff being shoved in our faces. We don't have to buy these games. We can say no. And if enough of us say no, then the studios that are making these, the creators that are making these games, will not be able to survive. They will not be able to continue to make games like this. And so a lot of gamers want their voices to be heard. And this is just the latest example of that. Seeing this, completely, masculine, female character with a shaved head and sort of cocky attitude and everything. Everyone's just kind of like, what is this? What about this is supposed to be interesting to me? Why would I want to play this game? And a lot of people saying it's predictable. It's exactly what they would expect from the next game from Naughty Dog, the next game coming from Neil Druckmann. And there's even a supposed plot leak that came out for the game. Now, a lot of people are saying that the plot leak was not true, but I'll be honest, reading through it, it sounds like exactly the kind of thing that Neil Druckmann would write. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if at least it's maybe an early draft of the story that they were trying to tell. Basically, it's a bunch of ripped off plot points from a bunch of other more important, classic stories and stuff like Heart of Darkness and stuff like that, kind of ripping off a bunch of these other storylines, but of course with an empowered woman at the center of the story. So yeah, people are just done with all this propaganda. They're done with all of the political ideologies being shoved in their faces, and this is going to be the next big collapse. Probably, I would guess, will be the end of Naughty Dog as a studio. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, as I often say. But it doesn't seem like it will be a big winner for them, and especially get this. This would be uh, another big loss for Sony after Concord. So yeah, not looking pretty, not looking like a very attractive title for next year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
Well,
yeah, that kind of went down today. I was gonna say, I don't think we've got any other specific topics out there that we were planning on
Skeleton
talking
Crew,
about.
did you end up watching it?
Oh yes, yeah, I did. I did watch this week's
So
Skeleton.
without, torturing people here, this episode, and I think we were talking about it at the beginning of the show, and a little bit we touched upon it here before. I never thought this was a good show. I think that the first episodes, the first two, weren't very good, and I think today was a terrible episode. It felt like really full on Disney Plus. And again, you say it, everybody knows what it means, and it's not a compliment.
It's complete filler. There is nothing, absolutely nothing essential that happens in this episode. It does not move the story forward in any significant way. It does not change, the characters. The characters don't evolve or show us anything new or special about themselves. It is a bog standard plot. You could have guessed it uh, from the start. It is a silly waste of time. I would say, personally, I thought this was the worst episode they've aired yet. So I have not hated the show. I kind of was curious to see what they might do with it. The 80s adventure movie trappings of the story, and obviously, like I've said, I think it's
I
just
don't think it was
retelling.
executed. I don't think it was executed as well as those
No,
kind of old school movies, but go on.
no, I just say kind of putting those trappings on it, and then it's basically going to be a retelling of Treasure Island in a lot of ways. Uh, I didn't hate it, but at the same time, it's not Star Wars. And if it
It
is Star Wars, it's a pale imitation of what Star Wars really ought to be.
it doesn't feel like Star Wars, and honestly, this episode bored me. It was so boring. That's the worst thing. That Star Wars used to be this cool, adrenaline filled thing that you're so immersed in it, and it's like, it's so it's such a spectacle to watch, and it's such an experience. And this show is none of those things to me.
Well, it was a rousing adventure. You had the callow youth who's coming into his own and exploring, the world, and exploring this world outside of everything that he's known, and his little life that he's lived on the farm, and he goes out and seeks adventure, and finds this new world is that's so much bigger and more fantastical than he could have imagined, and he develops his powers, and he earns who he is as a hero, and then has to face off against the evil, has to sacrifice all of those things that we saw in that original hero's journey of Star Wars. They're just been thrown out the window. It's it's just this
Totally.
sort of, oh, it happens in space and they have hyperdrives. Otherwise, this could happen in any. This could not be Star Wars.
I did a review for episode 3, and, episode 1 and 2, some people watched. Episode 3, barely anybody watched, and I think that that's the end of the road for my reviews on this show, because it's dumb and silly, and
Yeah.
there's just not enough people interested in it.
Yeah, you could maybe do a wrap up at the very end, maybe, but other than that, I'm not sure I would bother either. I don't think anyone cares. I really don't think anybody cares about this show. We'll see over on the Mr. Brown Alliance how his numbers do for the reviews each week. I think that's more comedy than it is actually reviewing the show, but it's man, yeah, I just don't think anyone cares about the show at all. It's definitely not getting the ratings on Disney Plus. It's not making the top 10 for premieres. It's barely even breaking the top 10 on Disney's numbers, much less ever compared to everyone else's. So
Yeah,
it's people just don't
there's
care.
and by the way, what's interesting, and this will be a good way to kind of start wrapping up what we're doing. Uh, where was this? Um, so here, try to share this. Paul Tassi is in my opinion, major shill.
Yes.
So one of his techniques is like there's a problem happening. He tries to write about the problem, but he always dances around the real reason why the problem is happening. I don't know if I was able to share it. Were you
It's
able to
not
see it?
showing. It's not showing. Um, Here, I can try. You're just sharing his article. Well,
I
no, it
was
didn't let me
trying, but
didn't let me share it
didn't.
either. It just sort of collapsed when I tried to share it. So,
Uh,
um,
okay.
that's weird.
Yeah, it's strange. Can't say I know exactly why this is happening, but
Yeah, I was kind of doing this the other day. I was trying to share something, and it just sort of
okay. Let
gives
me try
gives you
one
little
last thing.
errors out. Yeah. Oh well. But yes, I saw this article by Paul Tassi
In any
today.
case, what happened in the?
Yep.
Are you there?
Oh, hello. Oh no. Am I back? I can't tell. Oh no. Oh no. It looks like I'm back and prices dropped out. We'll see. Maybe now that, everything reset, I'll be able to share the article. Let's see. Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is the article. So
yeah. Oh,
basically,
everything reset on us there. Welcome back, Price.
so what happened is in this article, Paul Tassi is like, I can't understand it. Now some of these shows are so great and they're not succeeding, like The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, and it's like, dude, you're such a he doesn't want to admit that they injected all these ideologies and chased people away and they took a dump on their fans. It's always like beating around the bush. He's such a frustrating guy. There's no way he doesn't know the truth. And I know from that one time that he got annoyed at me is that he knows very well what everybody is thinking and what the truth is, and always some stupid spin. It's like, what? Your life depends on spinning this?
Yeah. Oh, it's just this whole article was ridiculous.
It's like,
Uh,
oh, Andrew was good, but people don't watch it. This is arguably one of their better
yeah.
shows, but people
Oh,
don't watch it.
it's
It's
so good.
not that
Well,
great.
and then he claims that the problem with Disney Star Wars is that they just can't get away from Luke Skywalker and the Skywalkers. They can't stop telling stories about the Skywalkers. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, they totally ruined the Skywalkers, and now they're just
Yeah,
making crap. I don't know what you're talking about. This guy is so annoying. It's like you could tell how disingenuous and how dishonest he is in his articles,
yeah,
and one has to wonder why. I mean, it's either that he is the dumbest person ever, or
yeah.
he's not dumb and he's trying to push a certain agenda. And you know what? That makes it even worse.
I mean, he's trying desperately here to try and I think on one side say, Yes, we admit that Star Wars is not doing well, but at the same time, trying to say, well, here's all the reasons why, and it's the fans'
And all
fault,
his reasons are
and it's all
crap.
the
He never
yeah,
says the truth. He
yeah,
never, and he does the same thing with games too. "Oh, I don't know why Concord failed. Why did it fail?"
yeah,
Yeah, nobody wanted to play it, you stupid why did it fail? It failed because people don't like this type of game because it's like, "Oh, it's this shooter, it's that shooter." It has nothing
yeah,
to do with it. These kind of games, they have these type of propaganda and people just don't wanna play them, but he refuses to actually address the elephant in the room and always some other excuse. So this article is another one of those cases,
yeah.
and
Oh, Disney Star Wars has mined the Skywalker era to death. No, it hasn't. They literally
no,
killed off. They, as he
it
says
put
here,
the
they
Skywalker era to death, but he didn't
yeah.
it didn't mine it.
No, they ended it. They wiped out those characters, and then they went back, and they're still telling stories in that same time frame, but not with those characters. And then those stories have been disasters. Nobody's been watching them. Nobody's cared. His next one, yeah, no one's watching the shows. Well, they're not watching them because one, they're on a terrible streaming service that a lot of people have decided they don't want to pay for because there's nothing on there worth watching unless you're a kid, you've got a kid who's the right age to watch Bluey. Uh, they, they've produced one just stinker after another. After they made the first couple seasons of The Mandalorian, everything since then has been crud, except for Andor. And people didn't want to tune into Andor because they expected it was just going to be more crud. And then, of course, some people did tune in, they watched it, and they found it to be a little bit too slow. It just didn't really match what their expectations were for the show. I'll tell you, it is the first few episodes are pretty slow. I will admit they are. But I think there's a really interesting story that gets told there. And I think there's some fantastic acting and some great dialogue, and that you get to actually see sort of the real sinister side of what the Empire is. It's not just Darth Vader flying around with a bunch of people underneath him. It's not just stormtroopers. There's a system there that's designed to oppress people. There's a system there that's designed to to really tear down society and sort of enforce this social order on everyone. So you see that real sinister evil side of the Empire that I don't think gets explored in other media. So I think there is something interesting, and I'm looking forward to that second season, which will be the last for Andor. But yeah, all of these other shows, they suck. And they've just gotten progressively worse. And no, Skeleton Crew is not the worst of what we've seen so far, but it's still not good. So why would anyone show up for it? Why would they care?
I agree.
So yeah, some of his other things. Oh, it doesn't matter if shows are good or not. Acolyte had more mixed reviews. No, Acolyte had terrible reviews. The
Acolyte
only
was a
people
disaster.
who were reviewing the Acolyte and giving it positive reviews were paid shills. They were people who were being flown in to
Absolutely.
Lucasfilm to meet people and shake hands and get gift boxes. They were being
Gifts from the
sent on
producers and the actors, anything you can
They
imagine.
were being sent on cruises and all sorts of stuff. They were getting paid out the wazoo. Now they say, "Oh, we're not paid shills." No, you took gifts of material value, whether you took cash or pay or were paid directly by them. That does not matter. You took gifts of material value, and you in return gave them good reviews for a show that is objectively bad. So yeah, that mixed reviews my ass. This show was universally hated because it was terrible.
He's very disingenuous, this Paul Tassi guy, but go on.
No, the far biggest issue is the content has an astonishing price tag. I will agree with them on this one. One of the biggest issues has been that they don't know how to make a show with a television show budget. They have to make these shows with enormous blockbuster level budgets, and they're not going to make that kind of money back on subscriptions to Disney Plus.
Right.
They have to be able to scale back the price of these projects, or it's just going to end up it's always going to end up the same. They're going to lose a ton of money because they're not going to make back a two that it says 250 150 million 180 million for the Acolyte, which of course we've learned since then that actually that budget was probably close to twice that much. So it may have upwards of 350. So no, they are not spending their money wisely when it comes to those projects. That's absolutely true. So, most of what he says is
It's always the same
it's
thing. He's trying
completely
to
absurd.
cover up some issue and you just spread some kind of narrative, and man, is it annoying. But on the bright side, I think this is a good time to do some shout outs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because we went and we came back, there's only like 3 people to shout out because I can't see all the rest,
Well,
but
I still have my YouTube chat open. Of course, the YouTube chat crashed at one point, so I lost a little bit of that. But let's see. I've got Rumble open up here. So Kivo 1961, Phantom Monk,
yeah,
uh,
Kivo.
Viking Nav, Eraserhead. I think that's just about everybody who joined us from Rumble. And on YouTube here, Justin Cook, Marla Charandoff. Again, if you want, you can go back. You can support her change.org petition there for Marla and her sister Tara, who's getting some online harassment. That's not cool. That's not cool. Ghost Fixer, Marrockstro, Jonathan Conroy, Smilex, The Dead Man, and of course, thank you again for your 2 super chats, The Dead Man. We always appreciate it. Stephen Mack. Scroll down here. Mark's 47. Doc number
Marla
20.
Sharondoff.
Yeah, Doc number 27. Wheelam 03. Eraserhead on both sides of the chat, both on Rumble and on YouTube there.
Eraserhead is it everywhere.
Yes.
Everything everywhere at once.
Kelly Hans, Phantom Outsider, North Shore 85, Create the Imaginable, DJ Play Nice. Hey there, DJ Play Nice. Good to see you. Joshua Calkins. And I think that's just about everybody. Cosgrove.
Jonathan Conroy, Caleb
Yes,
Levine,
Caleb
Scott
Levine's.
Otford,
Yeah.
Phantom
Yeah.
Monk. Yeah, I think we have a lot of great people. If we missed you, I'm sorry. We'll get
Yeah.
back. We'll get to you next time. It's been kind of a strange stream where people we were shut down a few times, but
Yeah,
tried
when
to make it work.
when the browser crashes, we lose the whole chat history. And so then I think it happened to both of us about the same time. So
Yeah, we went through
yeah.
that. I don't know what caused it, but I think we
Yeah.
overcame it.
Yeah.
And I guess, on this very, very positive note, I want to thank everybody that hung out with us. I want to thank you, Professor, for
Yeah.
for hanging out and talking to us about all these great subjects.
Always fun.
And I guess, like I said before, if you're not yet following us, subscribed, you should do that right now, no matter what platform you're on. And we're going to be in some movies in the future, so you should pay attention to us. I don't know why I said that. But
oh, it looks like we got a super sticker from Six. Hey there, Six. Welcome.
Hey, Six, you really
She
remember.
gives us a poop emoji. So I'm not sure if it's a happy
No,
poop
she does that
emoji.
sometimes.
So,
I don't really
yeah.
know why. Maybe because I said we're going to be in movies. We should be in movies.
We should.
Anyhow, it's been a pleasure, and I guess, Professor, is there anything you want to plug before we leave?
No, I think that ought to do it.
Awesome.
As
So
always,
yeah,
thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. It's great to see
thank
you.
you, everybody.
We'll be back on Thursday.
See you guys on Thursday, every Tuesday and Thursday, 11:45 p.m. Eastern. We're here on the Night Owl, and we'll see you Thursday. Good night.
Good night, all.